Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I'm your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. That's NacheSnow.com. Over there, you can find show notes for this episode and every other episode, along with blog articles and helpful resource pages from health and wellness to business to photography, you name it. All of my favorite resources are found over there, categorized, linked, and everything just for you. And then you can also sign up for the newsletter so I can kind of give you my thoughts on following your passion, business tips, and all of that good stuff. So if you have not already, please head on over there. And I'm really excited to introduce the guest today, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the Life Cleanse journal. And a lot of times people see my Instagram account and they think that I'm creating a planner journal. This isn't a planner journal, which even though I've gotten so many inquiries about creating a planner journal or maybe stickers for a planner journal, that might be something I might try to tackle in 2018. But I love to hear your thoughts on it. So shoot me a line or send me something on social to give me your thoughts. But this is actually a journal that just asks you questions within 10 areas of your life so you can really look at your life holistically and figure out what you want to focus on in the next year. So I'm going to self-publish this at Ingram Sparks, which will also allow me to publish it on Amazon. So if any of you guys out there are interested in self-publishing or doing something like that, of course I'm recording everything I'm doing in order to get it done. So once it's completed, I will kind of share that with you. So then if you choose to create your own journal, book, or whatever, you know what I know. But anyway, I just got samples in the mail last night. So I kind of know what I want to order, the type of paper. So now I just need to do it. So I'm really excited. So stay tuned for that. If you're not already on the newsletter, just head on over to the website to sign up for it. Okay, so on to our guest. So I have Kirsten here from Hushwing Watercolor. I saw her product on the Rising Tide gift guide, and she actually just started her store May of this year, which I love having a mix of people who have been doing whatever they're doing, whatever their business might be for a while, and people just starting out, because I feel like there's lessons learned that we could get from people in those different stages. But for her, she's pretty new, but I've seen even after I saw her gift guide, I saw her mentioned somewhere else. So I just think she's doing a really good job of collaborating with others. And our last episode was just about creative collaborations, but collaborating with others to get the word out there. So I'm really excited to see what she does. And I wanted to make sure that I published her episode before Christmas to give you guys a chance to maybe purchase her watercolors for a present if you guys know an artist in your life. But anyway, in this episode, she talks just a little bit about her process of making watercolors. We discuss creative collaborations a little bit, marketing, how she just got started, how she's just now getting into wholesale with a couple of places, how she prepared for the holiday season. So we touch, a little bit on the business stuff, a lot of just the story of kind of getting there, because what I really like about this is another example of somebody could have said, why create watercolors when they're already in the store? You can go to Walmart, Target, you can go to all these other places. There's all these manufacturers already doing watercolor. Why even bother to do something that maybe you think the market is already saturated with, right? So a lot of times people have this idea, no matter what it is, they give up and then they don't do it. But in her case, she was like, you know what? There's something said about good old fashioned watercolors made by hand, and true kind of artists that really want to kind of get back to the old way of painting will appreciate this. And even though it's a higher end watercolor, people in a specific market group will want this type of product. And she pursued it, and now she's kind of seeing where it goes. So I just hope that when you're listening to this, like no matter what your idea might be, it inspires you to act on it. Because a lot of times when I talk to people, they have all of these ideas and they refuse to do them because they're like, well, so and so is already doing it. Well, I saw 5 Instagram accounts and basically they're doing what I'm doing. So does it make sense that I do it? Yeah, because you're going to put your own spin on it and you're going to do your own thing. So I just like love like her passion for the arts, and she's an artist herself, and that she actually is just kind of trying to make it work and see kind of what happens here. So I hope that you also enjoy this story. Before I begin, I'll just also say, this season and last season, you know, as a graphic designer, I do have like this affinity for, I think, like artists and designers. So all of my podcast seasons will be sprinkled with, you know, some type of artist, because I just have like a love for it. And so I made sure that over at YouTube, where I also publish my podcast episodes, that I created a special section called Selling and Marketing, like art and design. So if you are an artist or kind of dabble in the arts somehow and you're looking to figure out how to grow your business, I have all the related episodes lumped together. So just go to nachesnow.com/YouTube to check that out. And of course, if you go over there, I have other things too, because like, of course, I'm big into, for example, like health and wellness. So I have like a health and wellness section too, because I've interviewed a lot of people about either eating right or fitness or whatever it might be. But for this particular episode, if you are someone that is in kind of the art realm, definitely go over there and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I've got all kind of goodies over there. All right. Well, let's just jump in and see what Kirsten is talking about. Here we go. Hello, Kirsten, and welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Before we get into Hushwing, your business, can you tell the audience just a little bit about you before you decided to start it?
So I kind of was always creative, growing up, but I was never really like, I'm going to be an artist, or like art is what I do. I grew up on a farm, and I was kind of always just like experimenting with stuff. My mom's craft closet, my dad's woodworking shop, like just playing around. So I know a lot of people who are artists are like, oh yeah, I like grew up always drawing, and like I was kind of always an artist. And for me, that like wasn't really the case. But I started getting into graphic design. And that's what I started my college degree in, was graphic design. But a part of the core classes for that design degree were studio classes. And I was so like fish out of water. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know how to draw. I've never done this before. Like, I know computer stuff. So initially I was like, oh man, well, like, what am I doing? And then over the start of that and taking some studio classes, I realized I really liked it. And so it was this kind of like interesting transition where I started out my degree in design, and then halfway through I was like, I want to do studio art, and this is what I really care about. So it's kind of like a complete switch, but like super like late compared to my peers who are also in undergrad, who are like, you know, I've painted and drawn forever. I was kind of new to it, but I kind of had this feeling. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I switched over and switched my major to studio art and kind of focused there. And that kind of is where I like started developing my style with art. And my personal work is you know, separate from Hushwing, and a lot of it is kind of like assemblage, mixed media. And I kind of had this feeling of like, I just want to use everything because I love art materials.
Now, you know, even on your Instagram, I see like where you'll have like watercolor paintings next to the watercolors. Like, are those your paintings?
Some of them are, and some of them are from my customers who have posted using our hashtag. And then, you know, some are from artists who I've collaborated with, and I send them them a set and they create work for me to post. So it's kind of a mix, but yeah, some of it is mine.
Very cool. So yeah, so you like take this class and you're like, okay, this is amazing. Like I didn't even know I would like it. So where did you kind of go from there? Because of course you could have then sold your art, right? But then how do you go from there to saying like, you know what? I'm going to create the supplies for the artist.
Yeah, so it was an interesting path, right? For sure. So yeah, I finished undergrad with my my degree in studio art, but I also had a concentration in art history and also graphic design. And the art history combined with the studio art is kind of where everything started to grow. And I first discovered an artist, Amanda Brazier, and she makes her own oil paints from soil in her region and creates her oil paintings with those. And I saw that and I was like, this is the coolest thing. I want to make my own paint. But it was kind of one of those things where life was really busy. It was a bad time. So it was kind of just one of those things that was like on a shelf. I was like, I'll do this one day. But then when I finally had some time, I started getting into making my own paint. And that was after undergrad. And I just really got into it. I taught myself. I did a lot of research. And that's where kind of like the art history thing comes in. Because I can spend a long time on the internet just like going through all sorts of stuff.
I know. It's like a black hole, right? You're like, oh, that's interesting. Let me go to this article. Oh, and that article leads to another article, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely like the click venture on the internet. But a lot of my research for my paint came from reading a lot of like old artist journals. Because before we had our modern paint manufacturers, all artists made their own paint, and that was something that was, traded down from master to student. It was kind of like part of the trade, like when you learn to be an artist. So everyone made their own paint, and there's this like really immediate connection to materials, and I think that we've lost that with modern paint manufacturers. So part of what I'm trying to do with my paint making process is kind of like bring that back to people, and also bring back traditional methods. But a lot of my research has come from just reading a lot of historical information and doing that kind of research. So I'm a huge nerd when it comes to art history, for sure.
So were you like still in school when you started selling it, or you just started experimenting with it?
I actually just had the idea when I was in school. I didn't do anything with it when I was in school because
it's just no time. Right? You're like, let me just get my projects in, and then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was kind of like this distant idea of like, oh, I saw this artist who makes paint, maybe one day I could do that. But it wasn't something that I started doing until after I graduated and some time had passed. So yeah, it's a more recent project.
Now, when you graduated, did you get like kind of like a traditional graphic design job? Did you like work in studios? Like what path did you decide to take?
So I actually had like a really interesting stepping stone between school and Hushwing. And I worked at the YMCA, and it was the YMCA at Virginia Tech. So it's not like your typical gym YMCA. It was a campus YMCA. And my role there was to run their art programs and also do graphic design. So I actually taught a lot of community art classes when I was there, which was really great to get plugged into the community and also try my hand at teaching art, which I really love. It was a great experience. And yeah, using the graphic design there too. So I did a lot of things there, but that's kind of the gist of what I did while I worked at the Y.
Now, how long were you there?
I worked there for a year.
So then after that, you're like, okay, this is amazing. I'm connecting, with the local people. And, I feel like that's a trend with everybody that I interview too. Like I always talk about the importance of connecting with like people near you. I think sometimes people are so caught up in social media that they forget, like, actually there are people that live like right next door to you, right? They're like in your community. But yeah, so after the Y, where'd you go next?
So we moved, and we actually spent 4 months out in California for my husband to do some training for his job. And I kind of saw that as the perfect opportunity to start Hushwing, because I'm like, okay, we're only there for 4 months. What am I really going to do in 4 months? I'm just going to dive right into this. So we were in a Airbnb apartment for 4 months, and that's kind of where I was just like, okay, I have time to do this, let's do it.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of like when I started the business side of Hushwing.
Yeah, so how did that look? I was like reading your about, page, and it's like has this line. It's like during production, pigment is molded by hand on glass slab with a combination of gum. I don't even know if I'm saying this right, Arabic and honey. I was like, wow, this process sounds intense.
It is.
I'm like, how did she figure out how to do this? So like, was that like really just like a lot of research and then kind of figuring out like the combination of materials you wanted to use to create your colors? Yes. And how do you keep the formulas like the same, right? That seems tricky too. Like, I guess like once you have like almost like your recipe, you just know to use it over and over. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, what was your process for like figuring it out and then creating something that you could repeat over and over again?
Yeah, so you're right. It's quite a process. And I figured it out through a lot of research. And then after I kind of like had some ideas of what I was doing, it was a lot of trial and error of figuring out how I want to do it. So I pulled a lot of pieces from information from other people who made paint online, did a lot of research there, but there's not a lot of information readily available because paint making is a little bit of a well-kept secret, and that manufacturers want to keep their recipes to themselves and their ingredients and whatnot. And so what I mostly pulled from is the historical side of things, because I wanted to kind of have this return to traditional paint making. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to kind of take that route. So I got a lot of my research from there, as far as ingredients, etc. And then a lot of it was just figuring it out and making a lot of paint.
right. Trial and error.
So, yeah, so I start out making my paints with a binder, and the binder is always the same, and that is using a recipe. I make the binder in-house using gum arabic, honey, and some other ingredients, and that I make myself, and I make using my own recipe that I created, and that's always the same between all of the recipes. They always have the same binder. And so then after I make that, I do each pigment or color has its own recipe, and that has its own combination of different ingredients for it to work. And I arrived at each recipe mostly just by trying a lot of different things. When I make a new color, there's a lot of research that goes into it and a lot of testing. Mostly because you want to do research on that particular pigment to see kind of what has happened in the past. Is this a pigment that's good for watercolor? How has it been used? Has anything gone wrong with it? For example, if you look at like madder colors or colors that are made using plant materials like sap green or something like that, they're not going to be light fast because that material, that plant material that is used to make that pigment, is going to break down and change over time. So, for example, you're not going to want to use those colors that might look beautiful now, but in 100 years or even 10, it can fade, and then you've got completely different colors. And so you can kind of see, like, oh, has anybody used this? And now their work looks completely different.
Right, yeah.
That you can look into. So I always kind of want to assess if a pigment is going to be long lasting and good and a good idea to use, and then I have to figure out the recipe for it, which is just a lot of testing. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And then, so like after you got like the maybe first couple of colors or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. How did you go about like deciding to sell it and then marketing yourself? Because, with watercolor, of course, you can go to your local art store and like just pick up, maybe some cheap watercolors. So how did you, I guess, market yourself as like, no, this is kind of like a handmade high-end brand of watercolors, and yes, you should buy it from me.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, I mean, you just said it, is that I do market it as, this is handmade, and there's this kind of movement online where, people want to buy handmade items. And so you just have to kind of communicate why your item is special and different from that cheap watercolor set that you could get at the art store. And the real difference with our watercolors is that the pigments, there's much more pigment in the watercolor than there is in many other brands. So where there might be 10% pigment in another brand, we have 50%, or whatever number it is. But because there's more pigment, you can get more saturated colors, you can get a wider range of values, and that really brings a lot more versatility to watercolor, in that you can have the whole value range, you can experiment a lot more. And that was always one of my struggles with watercolor when I was first learning to paint with it, is I was like, oh man, everything is always so high key, and that it's always in the lighter half of the the value range. And I really like dark colors, and I like paint with them, but I also like watercolor, and those things traditionally don't always go hand in hand. So the first thing that I wanted to do when I made my watercolors is that I wanted to be able to have dark values and have them be really rich and deep. So the first color I made was Colonial Violet, and it's one of my favorites because when it's at its full value, full dark value, it's almost black. And then when it's at its lightest wash, it kind of takes on this purple hue. And it's a really amazing earth color. It's probably my favorite because it was my first one.
Right? You're like, yes, it works.
It worked. I painted with it for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So that was kind of one of the points that I like to mention. You're getting a lot more pigment, so you can get really dark values, and it's also going to go a lot longer. You're going to get more use out of it because you need less paint. A lot of other brands have a lot of fillers in them, so that they don't have to use as much pigment because it's cheaper and easier to produce them, and to also get the right consistency if they put a lot of fillers in there and less pigment. Because every pigment kind of has its own personality and its own feel to it, and I kind of embrace that with my colors. Obviously, I want them all to have a similar feel,
because they all feel like they're part of the same family. Yeah,
they're all in the same family, depending on which palette it is. Some of them are a little different, but they all paint differently, and they kind of all have their own granulation and their own feel. That's kind of just honoring the pigment and this. They're natural earth colors, so they're from the earth, and you can't really control that as much. So you kind of just have to let them be what they are. But they're all unique and special, so they're not colors that you can go buy elsewhere. So that's also part of what makes them special and unique, and kind of our own thing.
Yeah. So how did you get, determine your packaging and then get your first customer?
Oh man, the packaging. Packaging is always such a struggle. So that was one of my biggest challenges starting out, is I thought like the shipping boxes, I had some problems with those, with like figuring out how to ship them. I always knew I wanted to do the metal tins just because that you can like slip them in your pocket. It's really easy to move around with them, and I like to paint outside. So that is kind of like where I got the idea for packaging them in tins. But yeah, the packaging, I knew I wanted it to be special and have a handmade touch, so I include a little piece of handmade watercolor paper in every order. I don't make it.
I was like, wow! Oh my goodness!
I'm not a paper maker. I wish I was one day. But I do include a little piece of handmade paper for the customer to try out the watercolor when they get it. We've got really luxe paper and packaging. There's a handmade, hand-stamped wax seal on every envelope, and hand-dyed silk ribbon that the tins are tied up with. So I try to really infuse those handmade details into the packaging. So it kind of feels like a gift when you open it up, even if it's just for yourself. It feels special. And then if you are giving it to someone else, it'll really surprise them. So that's kind of where I go with my packaging. But yeah, the shipping, if someone's opening their shop, my advice to them would be to package something up and like send it to a family member and see how it goes first before you send it to your first customer. So
right. So they're not like everything's destroyed and cracked and whatever else. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, packaging is always a journey, especially when you have a new product. You just gotta figure it out.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Well, so then after you kind of figure out somewhat the packaging, like how did you get that first customer?
My first customer. So before I opened up my shop, I sell through Etsy, but I also have a website. And I had the website up, and I started my Instagram before I opened my store. And I had my email list ready to go, and so I was marketing before I opened to kind of get people excited and create some hype beforehand. So then it would be a little bit more of a push of momentum when I did open the store. So I had about a month of posting on Instagram and sending out emails on Facebook and that sort of thing. I do most of my marketing through social media. So that's kind of how I started out. And so then when I opened the store, I started getting sales a little bit more quickly than if I had just opened and started marketing right at the same time.
And so how long have you been open?
Our shop opened up in May of this year.
Yay! How exciting!
Yeah.
Now, do you do this full time, or is this kind of like a side hustle?
It's full time at the moment, so that's exciting.
Yes!
Yeah. Very exciting.
Because then you can, really focus on the marketing, making the products, doing things during the day without having to like balance it with something else. So you can find out okay, if by doing this full time, can I make enough to be able to like pay my mortgage, rent, whatever, car payment, bills, right? Yeah.
Well, that's the challenge is like I'm always, I have goals and trying to meet those but you also don't want to always be focused on the money part of it because that's kind of like if you're too focused on that, you can start losing inspiration. And, then you're like, wait, why am I doing this again? And you're like, oh, wait, I love this. So I think that's kind of an important thing for me is to try to, it's important to make money, but also, I need to remember that, to stay inspired and keep myself going. So,
yeah, I mean, it's so tricky because one of my favorite books is by Elizabeth Gilbert, like The Big Magic. And she talked about, have you read that? And remember how she was talking about how she did keep her job for a while, right? And she talks about this, like, not wanting to put too much pressure on something you love to, like, sustain you because you might lose the love for that thing,
It's so true.
So it's like trying
you really
to
have to
find the balance, right? But I was, like, looking on your Etsy site now, and so since May, you've had, like, almost 300 sales. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. That's some good marketing.
It's been a good year.
Yeah.
It's been a good start.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the real reason that I can be full-time, and I mean, this is just a shameless plug, the real reason all of this has been worked out is because my husband is super supportive of this project. And so when I started out, we were like, okay, we're going to invest some of our own money and get this going. And he's been a huge help in making it happen. But yeah, a lot of it is just a lot of sweat. It's been very labor intensive. So.
I can only imagine. Like, I mean, for the listeners out there, I'm of course going to have links to everything, but like, I love the packaging. Like, I feel like I see the ribbon you were talking about, like the little kind of paper with the swatches. I mean, the attention to detail is like gorgeous, but it's so funny because I'm like, man, does she have to fill up each one of those little square little buckets with paint? I'm like, that is patience.
I do.
I was like,
well, the thing too about that a lot of people don't realize about each individual pen is that I can't fill it up with wet paint and then have it be done, because it will crack if I just fill it all the way up and let it dry. So I have to fill it halfway, let it dry, fill it another part way, let it dry, fill it more and let it dry, fill it more and let it dry. So I usually fill each one about 4 different times before it's done and ready to be sold. So I'm constantly having pans in all different states of being finished in my studio. And I do have to make about 4 batches of paint. And so that's 4 times of sitting down and mixing the pigment and the binder and the ingredients, and then molding it by hand, which is mixing it and suspending the pigment particles in the binder, and then pouring it into pans. So I have to do that about 4 times before I can get to full pans. So it is a super long process, which is part of like why they're a little bit more expensive than other paints, is because it is a longer process, but it's this really unique quality to them that makes them special. So yeah.
I'm glad that you price them right, though, because I think like maybe sometimes other people, they'll price them lower to compete with something that's in like Walmart or Target or Michael's or whatever else. And it's like, you're doing this by hand and it's taking you hours to do. You have to like make sure that you are able to earn a profit, and it makes sense, right? So I'm glad you kind of stuck to your gun and you're like, no, this is a high-end watercolor and I need to price it accordingly.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's good to hear that. Because you're right in that, like, you can price things really low, but then you're not making any money and you're working really hard and you're going to burn out really quick because you're working hard and nothing's coming in. So you have to do more than just break even, because you're trying to, I'm trying to support my family. And that's important too, when you're having a business that you want to be sustainable. So.
Yeah. Now, have you gone into wholesale? Are you thinking about going into wholesale?
I have a little bit, mostly just buy on a inquiry basis. So I do have a shop out in Colorado, True Nature Healing Arts, and they do carry my watercolors. So it's great to work with them. And then I also work with Silk and Willow to have my stuff in their online shop. They carry the Hushwing collection. So I work with them right now. And I am open to more wholesale opportunities. So if anyone listening, you want to hit me up, we can talk.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of on a case-by-case basis right now. But I am looking to grow more into wholesale in the future.
Yeah, and I would imagine, too, you want the right store, right? Like there's... the store should have a certain feel, attract a certain customer set that'll have like appreciation for these type of watercolors.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, before we wrap up here, I'm just curious, so now you're, of course, selling these handmade watercolors, but do you still create art? And if you do, are you just doing it for fun, or do you sell your art too?
This is the constant struggle, is when you have your business and then you also want to create for yourself. And the answer is, I try to create as much as I can, but it always kind of ebbs and flows with how busy business is. So right now, Christmas is coming up and, I'm working my butt off. So I can't say I've painted in the last few weeks.
Right, because you're just, right. Because this is your season, right? This is the first holiday season for you, too.
Yes, my first holiday season. So I'm kind of feeling out this whole holiday season thing. So I've been super busy. But I do try to keep creating for myself and keep creating my own artwork. And right now, because this is the first year that Hushwing has been open, and so it is a lot of, figuring things out and kind of navigating and problem solving. So I haven't had as much time to put into it as I would like. And so that's kind of something, a resolution I kind of have for the new year, is to be more intentional about having more time for me to create my own art. I do try to, I have in the past at least tried to show my art in galleries. I've been in a few shows, but it hasn't been a focus recently because I have kind of been all in on Hushwing watercolors. So it's something I'm kind of hoping to be able to shift and balance the scales a little bit more in the future, because I think it's important to keep your creative creativity going, and I feel like creativity is a muscle, and you stop using it, and then you're just like tired and stressed out. So,
but it's like a weird thing too. It's like, because it hasn't been a full year yet, I feel like sometimes you do have to like dedicate your time to that one specific thing until you can get it to where it's a little bit more automated, and then you can make space for like that other stuff, right?
Exactly.
Now,
so, always changing.
Right. And then something you said made me think of it, just the holiday season. Of course, I found you through the Rising Tide gift guide. So I'm assuming, of course, I remember them putting out a call asking for, artists or whoever, people who had a product to pitch your stuff, and then they decide if it's going to be in a guide or not. What are some of the other things you've done to really put yourself out there so this, could be a really good Christmas season?
So for the Christmas season, I do have a limited edition collection of artist goods that are coming out actually on Wednesday, the 22nd. So I have the limited edition holiday collection that's coming out on the 22nd. And those will kind of be available as single items, but also then in gift boxes. So those are kind of more ready to gift for people who want to give something special to the artist in their life. But I've also been working with, collaborating with artists to get stuff out there on social media and doing that kind of thing. So, I mean, people ask me what I do for marketing. I'm like, a lot of it is just social media, and a lot of it is doing my best to take really good photos.
Well, your Instagram account is beautiful. And so I could see why
most of the photos on there myself. So.
No, it looks good. It just makes you want to paint and create stuff, and So I could see how artists would go on there and be like, "Oh my God, I totally want to collaborate with her," and I feel like collaborations, especially right now, are huge. That's how a lot of people are networking and really getting their products out to the people.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also really fun to work with other people too, and make connections, and then you can meet someone through someone else you met, and it's great when a customer messages me and they're like, "I love your product. It's the best watercolors I've ever worked with, and I found you through so and so." I'm like, "Okay, it's working."
Right.
So.
No, very cool. So just a few wrap-up questions. Have you discovered your passion? And it doesn't have to be related to what you're doing. If so, what is it? And if not, what are you doing to discover it?
So I think I have, but I don't want to be too general, but I feel like it really is just creating and working with my hands. And it's the thing that brings me the most joy. And I think it was always kind of there, but then I really discovered it when I started making my studio artwork. And being able to express myself through that avenue in a way that I hadn't been able to before, because I feel like words always kind of fall short for me, that I'm a very visual person. So I feel like being able to communicate through artwork was one of the most freeing things I had ever been able to do, because I'm like, wow, people can actually understand me in a way that I have been unable to communicate before through this medium. And so, and over time, kind of like my creativity and creation has changed, but I feel like that's always what it comes back to, is I just love making things. I feel like it's this internal thing where I have to make something, and if I'm not making something, I kind of get in a weird funk if I haven't made anything for a while. So I'm always
completely
doing something with my hand. Yeah.
It's just weird. I was trying to explain that to somebody, and they were looking at me like I had 3 heads, and I'm like, I don't know if it's just from crafting with my mom's, back in elementary school. I just love making stuff, and if I'm not, it's like something's missing, right?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be any specific medium. I can be painting with watercolor, or I can be gluing stuff together with assemblage, or I can be making paint. it kind of can take many forms, but I just need to make stuff. So
No, I get you. Like, I know you're in Alexandria, Virginia, and it's funny because I just signed up for a class at the Torpedo Factory, which is in Alexandria, to do block printing starting in January. Because I was like, I feel
great.
like I need a class to make something. It's like, I'm like,
Well,
I
the
know
great thing about a class is it forces you to go.
right,
So,
exactly. You know, and it's like, okay, I've paid my money. I'm going to be there every week, right, in order to make something. So I'm like really looking forward to that.
yeah, I mean, whenever you're in a rut, take a class. I mean, I'm also biased because I love teaching art classes, but I think they're a great way to kind of just get everything going. It can be a medium you know and you want to get better at, or it can be something completely new, you know. I've never done block printing, but it looks fun. So
Right, that's why I'm like, huh, I see some cool stuff on Instagram. I could do that. I mean, like,
that's fun.
And what's one thing that you can't live without? It could be anything, tech, makeup, furniture, like anything, but something you're like, I need this in my life.
I mean, I'm going to be really lame and say my dog.
Oh, hey, our fur children, man.
Yeah, I mean, she's my baby and she keeps me company. She started this habit where she sits under my chair while I work. So whenever I stand up, she's like right there. But it's real cute. And she keeps me company. So
You're like, don't trip me.
yeah.
And please tell the listeners where they can find you.
So my website is hushwingwatercolors.com, and then we're on Instagram at Hushwing Watercolors, Facebook /Hushwing Watercolors, and then also Hushwing Watercolors on Etsy. So that's kind of the main avenues where you can take a look at our products.
Well, Kirsten, thank you again. I've really enjoyed this episode.
Oh, me too. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I don't know. I have like a special thing about watercolors. I just nerd out over them. So I will be buying like her watercolors. I just love everything about them. I love the packaging. And for those of you guys who've ordered like my handmade goods over at creativeroute.com, like, like I love packaging, and because I feel like when you send somebody something, there should be like this special feeling that they get when they open like your package. I'm like huge into that. And for those of you guys who are wondering what happened to creativeroute.com, by the way, the tech shop where I go make my laser cut stuff was going bankrupt, but I actually just got a notice today that somebody acquired them and they're supposed to open the tech shops all over the US back up. So, which means that at least in 2018, I'll be able to open my store back up. So I'm really excited about that. But so as someone who sells products, I do have like this and as someone who is a designer and somewhat of an artist, like I just have an appreciation for things that are handmade. I love getting people gifts that are handmade and supporting like local markets and local artists like Kirsten. And so I hope you guys enjoyed her story. And if you're into watercolors too or know someone, I hope you guys will support her this Christmas, because I really believe in not only supporting local artists, but also female entrepreneurs that are trying to kind of, make their own way and make their living through doing the things that they love. So I'm really just excited for everything that will happen to her in the upcoming year. And so if you guys want show notes for this page, you can find them, or if you guys want to look at show notes for this page, you can find them over at nachesnow.com/39. And I have links to all of Kirsten's stuff, but then also like everything that we mentioned too, from the Rising Tide gift guide to Amanda Brazier, the artist she mentioned, to Big Magic, the book that we both love, to the 2 stores that she's in, and even to the Torpedo Factory, where I'll be taking a class starting in January. So I'd love for you to join me there, because it'd be nice to, I don't know, see a friendly face. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please comment on social media or write on the episode. And I'm winding down. We're winding down season 2. Only a couple more left. I was trying to debate if next week or the week after should be the last one, but I think I'm going to do 2 more episodes. And I think you're going to really love these ladies that I have coming up. All right, so have a wonderful morning, noon, and night. And it is December, people. December. Crazy pants. Get ready for 2018. It's time, man. All right, have a good one. Take care. Bye.